Hi class, we're here ready to start up week 10. It's moving right along. Before we go into our week 10 information, I'd like to show you a new item that's been placed in your modules on Canvas. If you go to the Setup Course module, under our textbook section, I've added information to give you access to the Access data files. These are from the publisher's website, so some of you may have already grabbed them and downloaded them, but if you haven't, we've got them here. Today with this video, I'll be using this account management database. It was part of the file package that was given to us for the first project in Access, and it seems to match up with the PowerPoint pretty well. So I'll go back to the home screen, remind you that you can click on these links to go directly to our weekly module. It's a little clunky, but it works. Now I'll be looking at this PowerPoint, Access to Querying a Database. We'll be creating some different queries. So I know you have these training modules available, and this will give you all the same information. Try to walk through the available information for our course. So here is our database. This is the account management database again. In our database we have two tables, the account manager. If I double click on it to open it, I'm looking at it in this data source view, our spreadsheet view, and I see the different columns that are in our database. Account manager, number, last name, first name, etc. I only have Jim Brown in there. We might have to add more, we'll see. And then our advertiser table, these are the companies that we advertise for, so they're kind of our customers. We have their name and address and city and who their advertising rep is. We have a form and a query that have already been set up for us. So we'll take a look at the PowerPoint over here in this smaller window. We have a lot of objectives for this unit, as always. We want to be able to create queries in Design View, like we're looking at here. See how we can add more fields when we're using Design View. Set up some criteria for our queries. We only want certain pieces of data. Save our queries and use those saved queries. We want to be able to set up parameters so we can prompt users for which pieces of data they're interested in seeing out of the query. And we'd like to be able to use some compound expressions in those queries. We'll sort some data, join tables together, create a report in a form, export data from our query to probably Excel, perform some calculations and calculate statistics, use Crosstab, and look at how we can customize our navigation pane. So a lot of objectives for us. As we go through the PowerPoint, we'll be looking at creating queries in Design View, setting up queries and sorts and joins, and we'll see how to export our results, make our queries more useful by adding calculations and crosstabs. So to create a query in Design View, we can, as they say, click the shutter bar open close button to close the navigation pane. I'll close that then. We don't have to do that. It just gives us more space. So I'm going to go to my Create ribbon, and I want to create a query. So I'll use, they want us to use Query Design. We want to add which tables we want in our query, and I think we'll use this advertiser table because it has more information. After we've added a table to our query, we'll see it in our Design View table area. We can close then the Show Table dialog box. If we need that Show Table dialog box back, we can always right-click and choose Show Table, get it back, so we can add more tables to our query. Now I've got my table here all set, and I want to add this table to the query. Let's see what all fields we have here. Here's all of our data fields. We can see it in this nice view. The PowerPoint has some really good graphics to show you the different areas of the screen that we've touched. Now we see that we have all these different fields available to us from our table, and we want to add each of these fields to our query. So I'll double click my advertiser ID, and here it is down here now, showing up as a column in my query. Advertiser name, address, city, state, postal code. Do we want the rep number? Nah, we'll leave it out for right now. If we need it, we can always add it. Now, if we want to run our query, let's try it. We should just see all of the information from our advertisers table. I'll run it. And here we go. So we see this is output results of our query 1. We're looking at a datasheet view. We're looking at the results of our query. So I can go back now to my query design view where I was and continue working. Now I'd like to save this query. So I can do it a lot of different ways. I could click the save icon up here. I can right click on the tab and choose save. Let's name this query advertiser query. Now if I want to add some criteria, click the criteria row for the field to produce an insertion point. So what are they saying? They're saying click right here where it says criteria, and then you can start typing some information for what type of criteria you want to add to this query. So we could say that we want to have all of the names that are, let's see, who did we have in here? Let's run it. We could choose Babbage. I'll select their name. Control C to copy it, and I'll go back to my design view. And I'll say I want only the ones that are equal to Babbage CPA firm. Let's run it again. Now we only see that one piece of information. So in that way we can add criteria to our query. I'm going to go back to design view and take that out because we still want to work with all of our rows. I could also use a wildcard character like a star. Can I try like a star? Let's run it and see. That didn't give us any results. So sometimes we don't want to use the wildcard with an equals criteria. We may want to use it with something like a matches criteria. Oop, it's mad at me. I'll stop there. Now what they've done for ours is put a specific city in, and we can change this to be something that we could add in our criteria. Now if we don't want to show something in our query results, we can uncheck the box, and then that column will still be part of our query, so we could use it for criteria and things like that, but it won't show up in our output. So they show in the PowerPoint an example of looking for something that is Granger, and let's run that. Still see nothing. I'm going to go back to design mode. Take this out. Now let's run our query, because sometimes we have to be familiar with our data, and I probably want to see that column. We have some cities like What do we want? We got Portland, Seattle. Do you see any cities where we have more than one advertiser? It looks like Kettle Falls. Let's copy that. Now I'm going to go back to my design view and put in that city as my criteria and run. And we should just see our 2 advertisers that have locations in that city. If I put K with a star, what does that do for us? Still those same 2. So we're getting all of the advertisers whose city name starts with K. So that star is a wild card for us. And notice that Access put in that keyword like that I was looking for. So we've got it working. We can do a lot of different criteria like that. Now what if we want to ask our user what city they would like to see in the criteria? We can do that. It's called a parameter. We're going to enclose the name of our parameter field in square brackets. So I find my square brackets and put my opening and closing and then move my cursor back inside the square brackets, and I can put a prompt like enter city that my user will see. Now when I run the query, we should see that we get prompted for that city. I'll put in that Kettle Falls, and we've just got those 2 rows. I'm going to go back to design view and run this again, and this time I'll leave it blank and see if we can get everybody. No, not exactly. So what if our users want to see everybody? Let's run it. Could they put in a star or an asterisk? Nope. So we probably want to have different queries saved that show all data versus queries that allow a parameter for our users. So we'll figure those kinds of things out. Now sometimes we want to use a number as our criteria. So we could put a number in. Let's see, they want us to go back to our create menu and create a new query. In this query, we'll use our advertiser table again. And I think do we have anything that is even numeric on this table? The add rep number. Let's create that as part of our query and run it and see what kind of numbers we have. See, those actually have non-numeric data. So let's go back to design view. And in the PowerPoint, they show us how we could enter a criterion for a start date. We don't have any dates available in our table, so that's okay. We can take a look at it and see. We would just format the date the way we want and use whatever comparison operator we want. In the case of this example, we would be asking for all rows where the start date was greater than 1/1/2015. So we can use a lot of different types of data in our criteria. We can also make compound criteria. So we could do that by adding 2 fields. I'm going to go back to my advertiser query, and let's say we want all of the people that are in Kettle Falls, and let's see what that gave us. And then we also want the one who is on Polk Street. So let's go back to design view and add that in as their address. Now when we run our query, we should just see that 1 row. So we can limit things down to the data that we're interested in. What if we wanted to say we want to see the data if they have this address or this city? That would give us back both of those. But we could do the same type thing, and that would be by moving our criteria to the OR row. So I could move Kettle Falls from the criteria row to the OR row, and now I should see both rows again because I said OR, this one or that one. So I'm going to get them both. So that gives us a lot of customization capabilities when we're creating our queries. Now, if we want to go, we have a query going and we don't like the way it's working out, we want to clear everything, we can clear that. They say click just above the column headings in the first column on the grid to select the column. So I can select the column, hold the Shift key down, and click just above the last column heading to select them all. I don't have any more. Let's put some more in there so I can show you this. So I'm going to select one column, hold Shift, got them all, then press my Delete key to get rid of those columns so I could start over if I decided that those weren't the columns that I wanted. That'll help us clear the design grid. Now, our data, we might want to sort our data. So I'm going to go back to our advertiser query that's fully formatted. Let's get rid of this selection criteria and do some sorting instead. And we can sort super easy. Let's say I want to sort by advertiser name. I'll click in that sort row, and when the drop down becomes available, I'll click it and I'll say, yeah, I want it to be ascending by last name. So let's run that. And now we should see that our advertiser table is all in order by the advertiser's last name. If I wanted it to be descending, starting with Z, I could choose that. For the rest of our video, we're going to be using the Extend TAL Maintenance database from your Unit 2 Access data files. So download the Unit 1 through 3 data file, and we want the Extend TAL Maintenance database from Unit 2 or Module 2. Now in this database we have two tables, a team leader table, we have some information there, and our customer table, and each of our customer has an assigned team leader, and that's why we're going to switch to this database, because we should have a nice relationship that we can use. We're going to continue on talking about sorting. Let's create a query here real quick. In our earlier examples, we used the query design tool to create our query. We could also use the query wizard. The query wizard says, what type of query would you like? Well, I'll do a simple. And then what tables would you like to use? I think I will use my customer table, and I'd like all of the columns or fields in my customer table. So I'll click the 2 greater than symbols, which will give me all data fields. If there were some that I didn't want, I could click this unselect button to move them back over to the unselected fields list. But I'd like them all, so I'll just click next. And yes, I want to see every row in my table, so I can next and give my query a name. Customer query sounds fine. I'll finish, and it'll open the query for me. And I'm looking at the results from running the query. So this is my results table, my results set, and I see all of my different customers that I have in this database. Now, I would like to modify this query a little bit, so I'm going to go to Design View. Remember, that's on my Home tab, my different views, or I could right-click on my tab to choose a different view. I want to show you how to remove duplicates. So let's say that our customers would like a list of all of the cities and states where we have customers. So I'm going to get rid of these first 3 columns and leave my city and postal code, and then I'll get rid of these others. Now if I run that, we'll see that we're going to get a list of all of the cities where we have customers, and we can see we have Rock Hill several times. We only want to list it once. So in our design view, when we're looking at an individual column, there is a window called the property sheet. Ours is open right now, or mine is open. If it weren't open, I could click the button to open it, and I see properties or settings that I could use for this column. I also have properties or settings for the entire query. I can access those by clicking in a blank area up here of the query or in a blank column somewhere. Now this shows me the query properties. Say I want to get rid of duplicate values, so I'm going to say, yes, I only want unique values. Now let's run this again, and we should see, wow, all of our customers are in 4 cities, so we don't have a lot of territorial spread there, do we? So that gives us a way to only list unique rows or to omit duplicates. Super helpful. Now, while we're looking at our query here, let's go back to our design view. And I'm going to add all of the different fields to our query. What have I got here? Let me just delete everything and start over. I'll start at the top. I want my customer number, customer name, address, city, postal code, telephone number, amount paid, balance that's due, and their team leader assigned number. Now, let's say I only want to look at the customers that have the highest balances due. I can do that also at a query level. So let's say we want to return the top 5 and balance. Let's run that. And now we should see our top 5 balances. And if we wanted to sort, there they are. If we wanted to sort by that, we would be able to. Again, we could just return back to our design view, and maybe we want to sort descending by that balance due, so that we see those customers that have the highest balance due. And there they are, our top 5. So that's a top values query where we can select things that have a certain value range. Super helpful. Now, the reason I wanted to switch to this database is because our tables are related and they have been set that way in the database. We'll learn how to do that later, but for now we'd like to use a database that already has that relationship created. So let's create a new query, and this time I'll use that query design tool again, and I want to choose my customer table and my team leader table. And then I can close this. Now what we see is this relationship arrow between these 2 tables. If I expand the tables, we should be able to tell how they're related. It looks like our team leader number for our team leader is related to the team leader number in our customer. So if we add a team leader number to our query, and then a team leader number to our query from our customer table, we should be able to include our team leader's last name and our customer's name. Let's run that and see what we get. Now we're seeing everything by certain team leader. So if we sorted by this team leader number, Can we do that here? Oops, no, it's not at me. I sort again. Sort A to Z. We see that team leader 26 has like 5 customers, and Martinson here has a few, and Rogers. So now we see that relationship in action because our database is showing us in our query which customers are related to which team leaders, so we can see that information in that relationship, which is very important to our business. That's the join between these two tables. So if I want to see how these two tables are joined, I can click on this line and I can right click and choose Join Properties. Now I see that the left table, our customer table, is joined to the right table, our team leader, and we have the join occurring on our team leader number. So we could change our type of join, or at least the data that's returned from it. Right now we're only seeing rows where we have an occurrence in both tables. We could change that to where our team leader table was controlling and we included all team leaders, whether or not they had customers, or we could change it to include our customer table as a controlling table and we would list all customers, whether or not they had a team leader. Let's see if we change it to option 2, if that creates any sort of change in our query results. Doesn't appear to. Our database is properly formed. We have team leaders assigned for every one of our customers. So our relationship there in our join is fine to say that we want it to be the two that are related. So we can change that if we want, and we can use these join tables to create queries. Now we've got this query created. What if we want to use it to create or generate a report? Well, first we need to save our query, and I'll make this be team leader customers query. Now I can go to my create menu or ribbon and create a report. We have lots of ways of doing that. We'll try the report wizard here. And I want to use our query team leader customers, oops, I got a typo there, query as our base query for this report. And I'd like to include all of the data fields, so I'll select them all. Now as I next through, it says, do you want to add any grouping? Yeah, that's fine. I don't. You can come back and do that and try it because it's super helpful. Now I could sort within my report, or I could have had the data already sorted in my query. So we have lots of options within Access. I'll say it's a tabular report and we want this report to be named Team Leader Customers Report, and I'll fix my typo. And I could choose to preview the report or modify its design. We'll go ahead and preview it, see how it comes out. So it looks just like our display where we see each of our team leaders, and we don't have any sorting or anything going on, so we just have this report set up. Now we could change some things if we wanted to. In our report, I'm going to close our print preview, go back to our report design mode, and we could do many things if we wanted to. So with our report right now, we're looking at our reports property sheet. It tells us our record source was our query. We have our title here. If I want to change some things up a little bit, I can maybe put some spaces in there. And I can look at all sorts of different options, decide if there's anything that I'd like to change. Right now, my order by is set to what? Can we see it? Let's expand that window a little bit. It's ordering by the team leader number. Lots of properties that we can look at. Now, if I wanted to change any of these settings, I could do that just like we have been right here in our properties without any sort of problem. I can change up here. Change my view to report view. See my report. So I can generate a query and then quickly generate a report from that query. If we wanted to have a form based on this query, we also could do that. I'll return back to my Create ribbon and say I want to create a form. I'll use the form wizard. It's going to be based on my team leader customers query. I want to include all the fields. I'll next and next. And again, I'll change my typo and make it say form. And now I have a data entry type form for my different customers. And I can click through very easily, go to the last, go to the first. So many times that I might just want a simple form like this to give my information to my users. Now I could also export the results of our query to Excel. So if we go again to our external data, maybe our create menu, Now what I want to do is take our information out of Access and put it in Excel. So our PowerPoint here says to use our navigation pane to select our query. We'll use our team leader one. Now that I do that, I should have some options, and I want to use, click the Excel button. There we are. So if I go to the external data tab, there's the Excel button. I can export to Excel. I'll click that button. It'll ask me where I want to save it. That's fine. I want to export it with the formatting and the layout, and then I want to see that spreadsheet so we can take a look at it. Now I could save these export steps if it was something that I was going to do often. So I could just repeat the export. And here's my Excel spreadsheet. I have all my data loaded up the way that I'd like to see it based on my query. So again, I could supply that to my users or do whatever I need to with it. I'm not going to save that query export step. Okay, we're going to look at how to add criteria to a join query. We have our two tables here ready to create a query. I'm going to include the team leader number and then the team leader number from our customer and a little bit of information about our customer. And then I can run that. My records are out of order, so I'll go back to my design view and add a sort on that team leader number. And then maybe I want to only see customers that have a balance greater than 500. I can put that criteria in just the same as I would for a query that was just an individual table. Now if I want to add another column to my query that's a result of a calculation, let's try that. I can go into my design view and I want to add a new column. So I'm going to right click here on my field name and go to the zoom dialog, and this allows me to create a new column and a calculation. So let's say that I want to put something in about their total purchases. We'll call this column total purchases, so we'll put a colon after the column name. And then within square brackets, I'm going to say that the total purchase is the amount paid plus their balance. And that's how much they've bought all together. So let's try that and see if that works. I'll get rid of this criteria here. I'm going to see this for all of our customers and run it. And now I should see our total purchases being a combination of these two fields so that we can see who's bought the most and how much they've bought. So that Zoom dialog lets us enter any sort of calculation or expression like that that we like. Now if I want to change the heading, the title of one of our fields, we can do that too. Right now we have team leader number or TL number twice, so that could be kind of confusing. So I'll switch to design view and click in my team leader number column for my customer, and I'll change its caption and we'll make it be cost team leader number. Now when we run that, we'll see that different caption or heading, and it's a little bigger, so we'll have to resize our column. And we can see that it's now got the customer team leader number. We can also do some calculations that involve all of our rows, statistical type analysis. So let's go back to design view. And I want to add a new row. Let's get rid of this calculated one. I'll click it and press delete. And I want to add a new total. So I'm going to click this totals button. When I click the totals button, if you notice, it adds a new row here called the total row. So for our amount paid, let's say we want an average, and for our balance we want an average. Now whenever we do this, let's run it, we can see that we're going to get averages that show up instead of those columns that we had before. We can change that a little bit. We could put these back to be group by and group by, and then have a new column. We'll name this one, and we'll call this average. And we want it to be an average of our, I didn't put that information in, did I? Let's make this be an average of our amount paid. Now let's try it. And we should see for each customer their average amount paid is pretty much the same as their amount paid, right? Because we don't have multiple records per customer. But we do have multiple rows per team leader. So maybe we should make it group by our team leader, so that we could see an average of this paid. And let's add another one. Let's say we also want an average of the balance due. Now, I only want this information for each team leader. So what I can do is unselect the columns that aren't going to be part of our grouping. So let's get rid of all of them here. So now what we have selected still is our team leader number and our customer team leader number. We're doing the join on that, and of course we don't need to display both of those. And then our calculated averages. I'm going to try to delete these columns instead. Let's see. There's what I was expecting. So Access is pretty particular. It's only going to group things for these calculations where there is an actual grouping. So if we had additional columns that weren't groupable that kept us from creating this grouping number. And so now we see for team leader 26, we have an average amount they've paid, their customers have paid, and an average balance due. So we could talk to our team leader 29 and say, you know, you're doing great on sales, but we have too much outstanding, or whatever we needed to do. So that's creating a total. In this particular instance, we chose an average. We could have chosen a sum or many of those other different available options. So any available calculation that you like. We could add criteria to our statistical output. Let's say we only want one team leader. Let's see, here's our total row. And instead of group by, I could choose where. And we're going to type our criteria in. We want 26. Oh, I see. We'll leave this as group by. And we'll say this where our criteria is greater than 200. And then we've eliminated some of the rows that would have been included in our average by setting up that criteria for our total. So we can use a lot of different grade options, summing, and using the group by. Now the crosstab query is something that's a little bit different. Let's create one. I'm going to go back to our create ribbon, and I want to create a query. So I'll use the query wizard here. Let's cancel. I want to save this one real fast. Now, in our query wizard, we're going to say we want a crosstab. Which table or query contains the fields you want for the crosstab query results? We want our team leader, and we want our team leader number field. Which fields do you want as column headings? Notice how it's changing things for us. Let's see what it looks like. So our crosstab query, since I selected years, was just trying to give us some information on the kinds of data that we had for those sorts of tables. So gives us a tabular overview of summarized information. Now the last thing we want to look at is this navigation pane, and we can customize it. Right now ours is open. We can click the shutter bar, open close, to open and close it, and we want to click the navigation pane arrow to display the menu. So here we go, and in our menu we can organize our navigation pane however we like. So right now it's got all access objects. We could add tables. We could look at a custom view, and we could change things the way we want, assign different items to different types of pieces of information. I like the object type because that shows us things by tables and queries and things like that. We can add them all. Now we're looking at queries. So anytime you're not seeing what you want, check your navigation pane settings If you'll notice that last one, I set it to all access objects because I want to see what all is going on here in my navigation pane, but you might want to limit yours down to just viewing your tables or just your queries or whatever you like, so you have all of those options. Well, there's a lot of material there for Module 2. I hope that you've been able to follow along and that you'll let me know if you have any questions or run into any problems completing the project. Thanks.